Hi everyone! Today's video is not going to be one of my adventures, but more of a travel advice video for you guys with some tips and tricks that I use. I've been asked so many questions on Instagram about traveling, and I thought I'd just go through them one by one, just a few questions. Stick around to the very end because I think every single one of these questions is really good. Question number one is, how do I make friends while I travel solo? I understand why this question would be asked, but once you start solo traveling, you realize that it's actually difficult to get some time alone, especially if you're staying in hostels. So that would be my number one advice, is go stay in hostels if you're solo traveling, especially if you're in your 20s, because hostels are full of young people. But by all means, if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, it doesn't matter, stay in hostels if you want to make friends easily. Often the dorm rooms are full, and so if you go to a hostel, you're guaranteed to meet people in the very place where you're sleeping. And that's how I made lots and lots of my friends when I first went backpacking through Africa and Asia. Another tool that you can use is couchsurfing. I have used this tool since 2017 and I won't stop talking about it. You might have noticed in most of my videos I will mention couchsurfing because it's been such a wonderful tool for travel. You can either stay with people for free, or you can use the Hangouts option and see who's around in the area where you are at. And you can literally just meet somebody within minutes of talking to them on Couchsurfing. It's super safe because it's a reference system as well, so you can see what other people said about them when they met them. So I've had very few weird encounters on Couchsurfing in the bad way, and many weird encounters on Couchsurfing in a good way, and loads of wonderful experiences and people that I met. If you guys have been watching my recent videos, Pepe, who I took with me to the big nice house in nature, and who has become a really wonderful friend of mine, I met him through Couchsurfing. Literally just shot him a message, and we went from there. So that's probably where I would meet most of my friends. The next question is, how do I decide where to go? So as a solo traveler, the world is your oyster. You can pretty much go wherever you like. And so I would do some research. There are lots and lots of backpacking groups on Facebook, and they've been super helpful. So if you search backpacking Mexico or backpacking Sri Lanka or whatever it is, you'll find a community of travelers. And I think connecting with people through Facebook and asking questions and finding out if the place you're going has the things that you want to do. One way to decide is to figure out what it is that you actually want to do as a solo backpacker. Do you want to go whitewater rafting? Do you want to go bungee jumping? Do you want to go hiking? Do you want to go explore cities, or go to waterfalls or lakes? Or what is it that you want to do? Once you've decided what you want to do, just Google like good places for hanging out at a lake or good places for bungee jumping. And so you can figure out where you want to go based on what you want to do. And that then relies on you knowing yourself and knowing what you actually want out of life and out of your travel. Yeah, so figure out what you want and then do the research to find out where the places are that have the things that you want to do. Or alternatively, what you can also do is just go anywhere and find out what happens. I've done that lots of times, and it ended up being some of my best adventures ever. So just arriving in a new place without having any idea of what that place is like. And some of my best stories are like that. Obviously stay safe and take the usual precautions. The next question is, how do I stay safe as a solo backpacker? This is a really great question. I have been warned off traveling so many times, and I did it anyway. When I first went backpacking, I went straight to Africa because I was intrigued by Africa, the wildlife and the cultures and everything. I don't know, there was something about sub-Saharan Africa is what I'm talking about. So Tanzania, Malawi, Zambia, those kind of countries. And I just wanted pure adventure. Maybe this is also just a personality thing. For me personally, Africa seemed so intriguing. And when I first went, I was only 21, and many people told me, like, don't go, it's going to be dangerous, you're going to get robbed or killed or something. And I ended up having the most incredible time of my life. If I could go back to any time period in my life, it would be that year of solo backpacking when I was in Africa and Asia, it was unbelievable. And it was so good for my soul, and I learned so much about myself. One thing you'll find as well, related to the question, is how good you are at staying safe. Because when you're solo backpacking, that is your only responsibility, is to stay safe and to look after yourself. You are your only responsibility. And so if you're somebody who isn't sure whether they can take care of themselves or is lacking a bit of self-efficacy, so the idea that you can look after yourself, solo traveling is one way in which you can prove to yourself how capable you really are. Staying safe is just a case of keeping your valuables somewhere hidden so that so it's not like out, you know, so you're not having your expensive phone or whatever it is out in a small village in Africa, because you're making yourself a target. You know, it's using your common sense. If you go to a poorer country like Malawi, you want to sort of be very humble and down to earth, speak to locals, don't be flashy and like I don't know, I see it all the time with people who are just like fancy clothes and fancy bags and fancy this and fancy that. And if you are richer than many people around you, that's attracting crime. One of my main observations actually is that crime occurs where there is a massive wealth gap. So if you've got a lot of rich people living right by a lot of poor people, there's this big discrepancy between rich and poor. So of course there's going to be petty crime. So if you want to keep yourself safe, stay humble, stay down to earth, and don't put all your valuables out there. In Africa, I didn't lock my stuff up at all and nothing was taken, because by locking it up, you are giving it value. By locking it up, you're saying, this is really important to me and this is super valuable. But if you just leave your stuff out, and I don't know how this advice is coming across, I'm not going to be liable for anybody's stuff being stolen, but I would leave my laptop out and my camera out, depending on sort of the environment, depending on who I meet and the energy that I get from people, and the energy and the vibe of the hostel. This might be really bad advice, I'm not sure, but in my experience, the people whose stuff got stolen, the stuff was locked up, and the people who didn't get their stuff stolen, the stuff was out. Take this advice with a pinch of salt. This is just my experience. In terms of people and getting robbed and stuff like that, just use your common sense, all right? Don't walk around at night on your own with your stuff out, especially valuables out. Stay in relatively safe neighborhoods. If you're staying in a big city, there's probably going to be some neighborhoods that are going to be more safe than others, and you can ask locals about this. You can talk on couch surfing to people and find out where is safe. Staying in hostels is also safe because you're going to be around other people who are like you, and also solo backpacking. Meeting people and traveling with them, that's also a way to stay safe. And on couch surfing, read the references. Okay, the reference system is what will keep you safe, because if there is even one bad reference on somebody's profile, I'm reluctant to meet them, because generally the couch surf community is so sweet and so nice and open. If someone within that community is giving out a bad reference, that person probably really deserved it. And so I tend not to stay with people or meet people who have even one bad reference. I guess my last bit of advice on staying safe is just to feel out the energy. This is gonna sound strange again to some people, but you get a vibe from people. Once I got into a van at night in Malaysia with a stranger man, because I got locked out of my hostel and he was going to take me to a couch surf's house. This was at like 2 a.m, and so it was just me and this random man in a van, and it was a white van as well. It was like the most perfect crime scene, a potential crime scene. And I got in the van anyway because he had really good energy and he drove me safely to my friend's house. So feel out the vibe of the people around you. Feel out the vibe of the places that you're in, the hostels that you're in, and trust your intuition. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. Do not give it time to like play out into something bad. Just get out of there immediately, all right? I have been in places before when the vibe really felt off and I just left, or somebody's vibe felt really off and I made an excuse and left. So keep yourself safe by really trusting your own inner intuition about things as well. Bye.